Welcome to the Asian Dating Podcast. This week I have James Newberry. He actually wrote a book to help men with online dating, and it's really interesting. He wrote this book during the pandemic, and it's called Dating Profile Secrets for Men: Attract Your Dream Girl Through Storytelling. And I'm actually very interested in this topic because I help a lot of men with matchmaking, right? I'm your host, May Bugenhagen, and I run a boutique matchmaking company called Two Asia Matchmakers. So the men are usually the paying clients and the women join my database for free. However, I get men all the time that are not interested in matchmaking, but they want to try and meet women on their own with online dating. So I give them tips on how to write their profiles and things like that. But today we have an expert on online dating profiles. So I'm going to bring James on. And James, if you can tell us just a little bit about you and how you got started and what prompted you to write a book.
Got divorced around when I was 52, and I was married for over 20 years. And in those years, when I was single, there was no online dating, so it was a brand new medium. But I did have a background in advertising, which I found very helpful in creating a dating profile. I also had interest in different kinds of women. I tend to like women that are more intellectual. Eastern European and Asian women were what I preferred. I also went out with some Latinas too. And I don't want to say all, but I just had interest, and sometimes you're just not going to meet these people in your own walks of life. And the beauty of online dating, and you only hear the negative, but the beauty of it is it puts you in contact with people from all sorts of cultures and backgrounds that you just would never meet. You would never meet at a Christmas party or your church or your gym or wherever or organically at a farmer's market or wherever you're supposed to meet people. You don't have it. You have a much larger universe of women on a dating app.
So you were divorced at 52, and how long did you wait before you jumped on to online dating? Like, was there a 6 month period, or did you right
Well,
away said, you know what, I'm gonna take a look to see who's out there and what would excite you?
I waited a little bit. I definitely waited past when my divorce was official. But what I would recommend guys who are separated and going to be divorced, and some divorces take a couple years to go through, it depends where you're at, is to build a portfolio of photos that are going to be the cornerstone of your dating app. And so many people just take a selfie, or they have ones with there's a lot of jokes about guys and with fish. Guys are proud with fish, but I've never met a woman that likes that. Now, interestingly, I think it might be a good photo for a woman, 'cause the reverse might work. I don't know, but uh, a lot of guys are clueless about what photos work, how their photos come off to women. There's one website that I used, and I have no financial stake with them, photofeeler.com, where I actually paid to have mine judged. And they evaluate photos based on three characteristics: intelligence, trustworthiness, and I think handsomeness. Or they might have used a different word, but you get the idea. And some photos are stronger in one category than another. For instance, I had one with me and a puppy that did, off the charts in trustworthiness. I had one where I was on CNN in a suit, and that did very well on success or intelligence, but poor on trustworthiness. I guess the news media is not well thought of. So, but they kind of work as a team. Just like you want in a basketball team or a baseball team, you need people with different skills. You need your photos to advertise different things about you, and it's the composite score that matters most.
That's interesting. So the site, I'll link it in the show notes. It's called photofeeler.com, and people help you judge your photos. So did you go off that? Like, did you only
Oh, I
put
did.
photos on there that ranked high?
Well, they're mostly doing the main profile. So I did run them all by there. And by the way, you can judge the opposite sex photos too. And I did that, and you get, it doesn't cost that much if you're a judge as well. And it's interesting, some of the same photos will be, they put their, even their, what I like, their notes, their reactions, and one person, oh yeah, I remember the one I was on CNN, nice hair, something positive. Another says phony. So, too executive or something. I mean, so you get the mixed reaction. You don't need to appeal to everybody, though. Remember that. You just need to find one. So you need, so it's I think a lot of people are leery of putting their photos out there because they're going to get some criticism. Maybe it's not, maybe they think they're an 8 or 9 and they're a 6 and 7 or 5 and 4 or whatever they are, But you're just trying to find, you just got to get past that.
So how do you sell yourself? You have an advertising background. If someone is separated and it is legally divorced, they have filed, but how do they write that in their dating profile? How do they let women know that, hey, there's no chance I'm going to get back together with my ex, but I'm ready to move on, but legally I'm still not divorced
Well,
yet? How do you write that on your profile?
like I said, I waited till I was divorced. But if I was separated, one of the things that's trusted is specificity. If I said I was divorced last year, that's less trustworthy than if I said I was divorced February 13th,
Mhm.
2023. That's believed more likely. So that's one tip, would be saying divorce is been postponed, unfortunately, been separated for 18 months. The final divorce will go through November 5th or whatever the date is. That was probably what I do. I would definitely confront it. And there will be some that won't date you. You have to realize that. But if you want to like jump the gun, if you will, uh, I like being upfront because there's so much lying that goes on in dating apps, and I don't want to, obviously I'm a proponent of them, but the critics are correct. There is a fair, and I don't care about a woman lying about her age 2 or 3 years. It's the 7 to 10 years. It's
Oh, interesting. You're saying it doesn't bother you if she lies about her age 2 to 3 years, but more than that, you're like, oh, that's kind of sketchy.
Yeah, that's right. Right. I expect the world to be a little bit corrupt. It's just the degree of corruption, it's too much.
Well, how tall are you, James?
I said 6 feet. I am 5'11 3/4.
So you fibbed a little bit, just a quarter of an inch.
3/4 on there.
Okay. Okay. So do you find that a lot of men, like your peers, if they're doing online dating, that they lie about their height too, or no?
Um, I think that's probably a common thing for a guy to lie about, is his height, because it is a deal breaker. It's a screening. Um, and like you could meet somebody at a party and they could think, oh, you have a lot of confidence. I don't think there's that many people that discriminate against 6 footers. That's considered, tall. But a guy maybe shorter, yeah, would they do lie. And I don't know if that's a good idea. I mean, I think he should round up, if you will. If I was 5'11 and 1/4, I might say 6 feet still,
Okay.
but oh no, but I would never say I was. If I was 5'10 and 1/4, I would never say I was 6 feet. I just wouldn't. That's just me.
Right.
Uh,
So a gentleman who says they are 5'8" on an online dating profile, should I assume they're really 5'6" or 5'7"?
Well, I don't know. I don't know if you should assume. You just should be prepared for that reality.
Okay. But
Okay.
if a guy, if he is really truly a 5'8", should he write on his profile, I'm 5'8", I'm a true 5'8", or something with that?
Not a bad idea. There's other things you could do. You might want to wear cowboy boots too. I don't know. I went out with this one woman, and I was taller than her, at least 2 inches on the first date. And the second date, she was wearing these really, really high heels, and she was like looking down on me. And I don't really care, but I know in her mind, she said something about it. Oh, you're a little bit shorter than I thought.
Mhm.
So, something to think about.
Yeah.
Maybe, to if yeah, if they're going to wear these high heels, you might need to wear boots or something like that. Not that I care, but it seemed to bother her, you
Yeah.
know.
Now, you mentioned photos. Are you not a fan of professional photos? You think that we should just get regular photos with our cell phones or something?
I think certainly for a guy over 30, I like professional photos. They understand the lighting. But in addition to a professional photo, usually in a jacket or at least a collared shirt, maybe with a neutral background, I like some authentic photos, photos with what I call story appeal. And one of my favorite ads was David Ogilvy's. Is famous is the Hathaway shirt ad where he wears he puts an eye patch on the guy. He looks like an aristocrat with an eye patch, and people wonder, why does he have an eye patch? Was he in the war? And it draws attention. That's sold out. The shirt sold out the first week. People really enjoy it. Put his name on the map, and I tried some. I don't know if I was at a wedding in a tuxedo, and there was a donkey. It's in Mexico, and it was biting my nails. That's story appeal. So there was a few that I had that were story appeal. So I'm looking for that as well. I don't want any selfies. Selfies distort the face, make your nose look 30% bigger. You don't want all selfies. Your face is too much of the photo, and it doesn't look as attractive. One of the tests I did was of I had a professional photo and I cut it out to make my face bigger, if you will. It was for like LinkedIn or something. I forget what the purpose was, and it detracted. One of the reactions on the photo feeler site was too extreme. I remember that. There's an optimal distance. It's usually like 15% your face should be of the photo if
Okay.
it's a face photo, and you certainly want one full body photo too.
Yeah.
And I would when you're looking evaluating women's photos, you want to see a full length photo too. If that bothers you, if you don't care, then that's fine.
Now, what online dating site did you meet your wife? You said you've been married for about a year and you're in your 50s. What site was good for you? I know you live in Washington, D.C. area. So what are your thoughts on that?
I'm 61 now. The site I had the best luck with was Match.com, or I should say luck is not the. What I like about Match.com is it's unrestricted. It doesn't. You can put unlimited photos. Generally, I don't think you want more than a dozen, but it gives you unlimited photos. It allows you to give a description of each photo, which you should do. That's highly read. It lets you develop your bio better. It also has more questions that lead in there, and it just has a big universe. The size of the dating app matters a lot because you're going to come across more people. I tried international. I tried around 5 or 6. The one I liked least was Bumble, and the problem with Bumble, besides I couldn't do captions, it had less room for a bio, so I couldn't take advantage of my edge, which was advertising. You know what I mean? Because it was giving me less room. But I had to go on there all the time, and I had to wait for them to contact me. Now, my wife actually reached out to me. Um, she she did the private mode because she was just tired of all the kind of like mean messages, vulgar, whatever, angry guys. And that's the problem if you're a guy, is that so many women have had bad experiences that you're tainted. Maybe it's not fair that you're tainted by somebody else, but that's just the reality. If you're part of a group that's misbehaving, they're worried that you're the same way. So, anyway, I really like Match. I thought that's what worked for me.
Now, your book on dating profile secrets for men, what are something that you can advise men on that isn't the typical advice? What is something unique from your book that we can expose the secret?
Well, I don't think. Well, I'll give you one example. They all say that your photos should be in the last year or 18 months. And I understand what their advice is coming from. It's like you shouldn't distort how you look. But if you're telling your story, let's say I was a Marine from in Desert Storm or Iraq or whatever, in that part of my story, I can just date it and say I was in the service from 2000 to 2007. And it's nobody, there's not an assumption that's not what I look like now. So I mean, I do think most of your photos should look like you do now, but I don't think there's anything wrong with telling your story. And there's lots of good stories. I have a friend, Dat, who I help with and he was a boat person. And that's a great story. The self-made person, he's a successful businessman, restaurateur. And that's an excellent story. So there's all sorts of stories out there. I like starting with an origin story if you have enough room, like Match does. Bumble is a little bit. Bumble, one of those apps is more like a billboard. Now, billboards can be very effective. Think of the Marlboro Man. It's a bad product, cigarettes, but you get an idea of what the Marlboro Man is by you see him a cowboy with the lasso and stuff like that. That's advertising too. I'm not knocking it. It doesn't give you as many tools. So I think one of the things that I hear experts say is all your photos should be in the last 18 months. No, if that's part of your story, it can be older, just date it. Okay. That's all you need to do is date it.
I like that. I try to get men and women to give me photos within the last 3 to 6 months for their matchmaking profile. But I get it. If, like you said, if Match.com allows multiple photos and you tell your story, as long as you date it and you're not trying to get away with showing something that's 5 years older. And if I had a dime for every time a person says, oh, I look the same as I did 5 years ago, 10 years ago. No, you don't. You don't look the same as you did 5 years ago. I wish I looked the same as I did 5 years ago, but I don't. You look at yourself every day, so you don't see the aging, but come on, you don't look the same as you were 5 years ago. But I like that. I like the fact that you can be upfront, and it's also kind of a way to show your credibility, right? Like if you say that you fly a small plane as a hobby, you could show yourself with the plane, but you could say this picture was from 7 years ago or whatever that may be. But I like that. Do you find that if men would just start sending women dog pics, they would probably get more likes than if they send them like dick pics? Like, what is the deal with men sending women these phallic photos? Do you know what the psychology behind that is?
Well, I have studied this a little bit. I went out with this executive from a pharmaceutical company, and she said she dated a CEO. And one date, and he sends one of these dick pics to her, and she just laughed it off and said, "Oh, you got the wrong girl." And I was shocked, but she said her friend said the same thing. And apparently, it's just you remember have that Congressman Weiner, Anthony Weiner, might have changed the election, may have changed history. Who knows? By that, and it's a poor strategy. I just think it's a form of aggression. I just don't know why. It's a poor idea to do that. I was actually wrote a blog about that. There's probably two things you want to avoid. You want to be nice, so you don't want to send out dick pics, but you don't want to come across also the mistake that nice guys can make is they're too needy, too weak on dates. You don't want to um, necessarily bring flowers. A lot of the conventional advice about flowers and oh, let's go steady on the first date. You want to be a little bit cool.
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever watched the show Happy Days. It was popular, but there was a show, and there was the main character was a very square, earnest, wholesome guy, Richie Cunningham. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with him, but the women like the fawns better. Yeah. So I'm not a fawns. I'm more like Richie Cunningham, but I try to put a little bit of fawns in there when I can, while being consistent. You know what I'm saying? Just don't overdo the wholesome kind of too safe. Boring. You don't want to come across boring. So a little bit of an edge in there is something that men might benefit that tend to be the other direction. I don't know why guys send the dick pics. It just amazes me. It's baffling, but I guess they don't really care. Maybe he just didn't care. That's if maybe I don't know. It's just weird.
So getting back to that flowers on a first date, I really don't think it's necessary, at least not in the American culture, where a man brings flowers on a first date or chocolates on a first date or anything like that. It might be more common in different cultures, or maybe it's more acceptable if you were doing video calls and you lived across country and you've been talking for a couple months and you finally meet in person. That's different. I feel like that first date, maybe flowers is great, but you've already established a connection with this person and you already like each other. But first date
I
and
guess,
flowers is a little bit like too much in my mind. I would think that guy's trying too hard or he's not experienced with dating.
well, you want to project that you have options without saying I have lots of options. Okay. So what both men and women, they're similar in this way. They've done studies. They're trying to get somebody on their level or maybe just a notch higher than them on the dating hierarchy. Now, it's harder for women to evaluate that because they have a longer list of things that matter or are important to them. And I don't say that disrespectfully. I mean, the problem, I would say the guys make the mistake of over evaluating, say, looks. But um, women, they might like a guy who's handsome, but they might want somebody who dresses well, is kind, has maybe a prestigious career, the longer list. So it's a little bit harder for them to evaluate a guy. But if he acts like, hey, can we go steady, or we be exclusive on the first date? So maybe this guy he doesn't have a lot of options, and it's a turnoff actually.
Yeah, that is a little too much to be in a committed, exclusive relationship after a first date. It's different, like I said, if you've had a bunch of phone calls or you were talking to each other across country and then you finally meet and oh my gosh, the chemistry is so strong. Maybe, but still, second or third date is fine. Like, what's the hurry, right? Because if this is going to be your life partner, it's okay to take your time to figure that out. You don't want to look
Right.
too desperate or anything like that. So,
Right.
what are some tips that you would give to someone in their 30s and 40s? Does that differ with online dating than in your 50s and 60s? Is there any difference, or do you just go at it the same way?
Well, I would say that there probably are some differences. First, this is probably the best time for a guy, say 35 or 40, who has his acting gear. When I say that, has a steady job, maybe gone to college, these kind of things. Because there's just so many men, and it's not just in the United States. There's a lot of young men that are floundering. They're addicted to video games. They're not going to college as much. Schools or universities are 2-to-1 or 3-to-2, female to male. So there's really an opportunity for a guy who's say 35 and is kind of hasn't, just hasn't been serious to find, to say, a woman 25 or 30. And a woman 25 to 30 is beginning to worry if she's, wants to have kids. And most women still want to have kids. Obviously, the birth rate is dropping as an issue, but most women do. So I would think that if I was 35 and wanted a family, I definitely would emphasize that. And it's not enough because so many women have been burned by guys that promises. You really need to sell that you're going to do that. And you could do one of the things I did in my profile, because women that I was looking for, 45 to 54, let's say, family is a very important thing. I ended with the Browning poem "Grow Old with Me." The best is yet to be, the last of life for which the first was made, or something like that. I forget exactly. I had heard that poem when I was a younger guy from an advertising coach of mine. He had been an English professor, and I thought it didn't touch me at the time, but I thought, oh, when I was doing this, that would be nice. You know what I mean? Sometimes in life you change it doesn't, something doesn't touch you and then later it does. So if I was 35 and I really want a family, I would sell that. I would really emphasize that. I would think about how would they know that I am not a pretender. I'm being real. Just as I was talking about, specificity is trusted. If you really emphasize it, because so many guys have wasted their time. If you're 30-year-old, they probably, they probably had lots of guys that were said they were interested in marriage or a relationship, and they just weren't. or maybe they weren't interested with them. So they may be a little bit bitter. So you have to think about how you do it. So it'd be a little bit different, but I think for anybody over 30 to like 70, it's going to be have a lot of similarities.
So you're saying that storytelling is key with your online dating profile. So would you say something like, in 5 years, this is kind of how I see my life. In 10 years, this is how I kind of see my life. Like as a man, I feel like with the dating profile, you have an advantage to really let the woman know what you're thinking, right? Because in day-to-day life, we're not going to go on a first date and then grill this guy. But if he gives the information, if I'm serious about dating somebody and finding them online, if I read that, like what his kind of 5-year plan is or 10-year plan, at least he's thinking about it, that would actually gain brownie points with me. Is like, okay, I know he wants kids. I know he's thinking about it. Or if he has a great job, he should say, I really enjoy my job. I love it. I'm gainfully employed. I'm so glad I was educated. And now I'm really looking forward to buying a home. I'm saving money for that. Like all these good things that we kind of take for granted. Like it's kind of nice if they spelled it out for us, no?
Oh, I agree. The
Yeah.
first guy I helped was an army officer, and I played basketball with him. And he found out he knew what I did, and he said, I bet you could help me. And I never thought of what I did as, I mostly help museums and and nonprofits, so I didn't think of it like that at all. But I did help him, and I said, well, he was about to retire, and he had never. I think he had been married, but the marriage didn't work out, didn't have kids, and he was really worried that he was going to miss out on that life. He really wanted to have a wife and family. And I said, well, you really need to make that. You need to emphasize that in your profile. And he had great success when he added that. It made him stand out. And there were a lot of women in their 30s. This was their last chance. I mean, think about it. Some of these women are resorting to their egg, the egg freezing and stuff like that. They're doing it on their own. I mean, that's how to give you that. There really is an opportunity if you're serious about something. If you have a good offer, this is what This is marketing. It comes down to offer so often. Emphasize your offer, sell your offer. It's no different than selling anything else. Like, well, one of my favorite commercials that I think applies for online dating is the Dos Equis most interesting man in the world. Look how he dresses. You go, that's tell a story, be exciting, and combine that with a good offer. You're going to do much better than you would think based on just I don't know, your jaw or whatever features in your face or whatever, or whatever.
It is very interesting because when I got into this industry 15 years ago, I didn't really know too much about it. But knowing what I know today, I feel like anyone who is serious about finding someone online, like, wow, what a great place to find people. Like, it's like a salad bar of men and women who say they're single. Are there going to be some shady people on there? Yeah, probably 20% of the people you don't want to date, but 20% of the people are probably so hot that you probably can't get anyway. But there's like this great 60% of people that you have an opportunity to impress and have an opportunity to have a real relationship with. Like online dating is great. I feel like the people who complain about online dating are the ones who don't put the effort in online dating. Like you don't just go to a job interview and don't prep for the interview and expect to get the job, right? So why are you just half-assing your dating profile and not fill in the blanks, not get the photos? Like, why are you doing it on your phone and not taking the time to really put some information in there? So I honestly feel like the people who complain about online dating are the ones who don't put the effort in, because there should be someone out there for everybody, right? And I have a problem with the people who join my matchmaking service, the women that don't take care of themselves, send me a profile that is 10% filled out, and then they message me and they're like, well, do you have any guys for me? I'm like, you want me to find you your partner or husband, but yet you didn't even like fill out any information for me? Like it's the same concept. Like you get what you put into it, right?
Oh, I
So
agree. It's, as I say, the most important ad that most men will ever create. And it's much more difficult than a resume. I've done lots of resumes for people. More difficult than a college application because it combines the visual and the written image. And you do need to put your work in. It's about preparation. That's why I was saying, somebody asked me what they're single. I said, well, you need to prepare while you're single. When you get divorced, you're ready to go. It's not easy. You have to put in some effort, but it's much easier and a much better experience if you have a good profile. You'll have women coming to you versus, and you should go. But it's just because you'll be perceived. Advertising has a way. Like I said, go back to the Dos Equis, most interesting man in the world. Now he's a handsome guy. He's old, but his eyes are striking. But if you put him in a tank top, he just wouldn't look impressive. You have no idea. It's the storytelling combined with how he dresses creates that image of the most interesting man in the world. And you need to do the same in your dating profile. Maybe you can't pull it off like that. Okay, but yeah, you don't want to create an ad that's not representative of you, but at least you want a good day. How about that? So I
yeah, I love how, James, that you were single when you wrote your book and now you're happily married. Now, what kind of photos appealed to you when you were single, when you were looking at the women's photos? Because when you just made that comment earlier, like, man, if you have a picture with a fish, like a lot of guys would probably, you know, be curious about it or ask you questions about it, or you have a point to do some storytelling. Like, what photos did you like when you saw women? Like, is it in a red dress? Is it in a colorful dress? Does that make him look more like a positive person instead of being in black or gray or dark colors all the time? Like, do they need to show their collarbone or their neck? Like, what appealed to you when you were doing online dating with the women's photos?
I like I don't like if they have like a scarf. I never see their neck or anything. I mean, like, what are you hiding? Uh, my wife, she's Ukrainian, and she had a photo of her jumping out of a plane. And I said, "Oh, this is fun."
Yeah.
So, you can say, "Oh, I'm adventurous." It's so much better to show that you're adventurous than to say it. People discount, "Oh, I love to travel. Oh, I hike." And so because I saw she jumped out of a plane, our first date was actually went hiking into a vineyard near where she lived. And I remember my son said, "Well, that's too dangerous." I said, "Well, you really don't have much confidence in your dad." He says, "That's too dangerous for her." And I said, "Well, she jumped planes." And my profile, I'm pretty safe the way I created, and we had talked. But I liked. If there was one I remember I dated, and she had a black dress, very formal, but then she kind of hiked her leg up, and I kind of found that as sexy. So if they want to show something, it can be done well. But it was it was the photos and the story behind them working together that I found appealing.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Those are good tips from a male's perspective. So, uh, what do you see on women's profiles that you thought was a turnoff?
Um, Well, when they're trying to conceal things, like they don't have even one full-length photo, I'm kind of wondering, oh, why is that?
Mhm.
Uh, when the overly provocative kind of, I don't like to use the word slutty, but I'll use, you know what I'm saying? Oh, like you're trying too hard, it's like, oh, the a good advertiser kind of teases, there's no teasing even. Um, Ones that are negative, I mean, I just don't like negative, like, don't do this, there's just a lot of negative, a lot of guys fall, and they must have had bad experiences, and that's why they become negative. So those are the things that are turn off to me.
Yeah, I feel like if someone puts on their profiles like no cheaters, no liars, no this, no that, you're like, oh, they got cheated on, or Like
Yeah.
it gives a huge indication of their previous
Yeah. I say my advice, I, I've never been cheated on as far as I know. Okay. But if I had, I would bury it. I would not let people know because it doesn't come across well. It comes even worse for a guy to be cheated on in the sense that it makes you seem like you're weak. I mean, people like if a woman's cheated, and I understand that's part of their story, but you just think, well, it's a guy, that's how some guys are. You know what I mean? But it's just something to bury. You really want to bury the negativity as much as you can. Now, when you get to know each other better, maybe you want to let that out. But I wouldn't give voice to that at all. I try to be positive.
what
I'm
date
looking.
would you let that out on, in your opinion? What date is it okay to start filling her in on what really happened or be more deep in the conversation?
Well, women are good about doing background checks. So if you have some like negative, uh, say you were in jail or something like that, I would disclose that early because she's probably going to find that. She might already know. She might
Yeah.
already know. Let's say if it's something that somebody wouldn't know because it's personal, I would wait a few dates. Maybe the third date, bringing that up because the reality is not, most of your first dates don't come into second dates. So if you want to, so if by the third date there's a good chance that you're going to become a relationship, or is a reasonable chance, let's say. So that might be something that you bring up, at the right time. Then,
When you were dating, online dating, and then dating, when did you make the move? When was it appropriate to hold her hand or kiss her? And did you ask for permission to kiss her, or did you just make it an opportunity to kiss her where you knew she was going to be into it? Like, when's a good
well,
date to go for it?
for her, it's kind of hard to say because it was we met on February 29th, right before COVID, so a leap day. And our first date was March 7th up at the Vineyard. And by the next Saturday, if you recall, America was closed
Yeah.
down.
Yeah.
So we went to the second date, was to West Virginia to Harper's Ferry, which is a nice place to hike around. And COVID hadn't quite reached West Virginia yet, but but by the next week, I took the COVID thing so seriously. I thought it was like the Black Plague. So I don't think I touched her for a long time. But I don't know if that's a weird experience. But I think that most guys have learned these signs and know these things. Now some guys aren't good at that, and obviously that leads to conflict. I will say that by the third date, if you go to kiss her, even just a quick kiss, if she turns her cheek, that's a bad sign. I've learned that one. But it means you probably should move on. I don't know why, but they do that. But that's a bad sign. But I think you should be patient, but you don't want to be pushy for sure. But you want to be on the lookout for women that are time wasters too, and that there are women that just I don't know they liked going out, but they didn't they weren't that interested. And one sign was on the second date, if they didn't want you to pick them up, they didn't mean they don't trust you or they just want to get away, but they still liked you a little bit. You know what I mean? So you want to dissuade the lukewarms. You want somebody who's really not lukewarm.
So on a second date, do you normally offer to pick up the woman? And if she says no, then you're like, okay, then she's really not that into me. But if she says yes to a pickup date, then
That's a
it's
more
better.
or 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 she comes, if it's more convenient, let's say for her to come to my house, that's good in the sense I can show her off my house, my family, because my parents have passed away, but I show pictures. you know, but thinking about it, I kind of like picking up because you want to see the reality. They don't have their husbands. One of the women I dated, I thought she was divorced. That's what she said on her profile. Then I asked her, she says, "Oh, I'm separated." And then I found out her husband lived in the basement.
Oh,
And I had her come to me. I see why she wanted to come to my house instead. But there's something, I mean, you're going to run into that. you know,
Yeah.
if you date enough. So there's something to be said. And I didn't do, women do background checks more because they're worried about their security. And I wasn't as worried about that. And so occasionally you're going to get burned by that kind of stuff. So I was just wasting my time. She was a nice person. I had nothing against her other than she lied. Other than that,
Okay.
she,
Um, I think it's a weird that men would invite a woman over to their house on a second date though. Like if I were dating and you said, "Hey, come by my house and then we'll ride together or whatever." I think going to your house on a second date is still pretty soon, don't you? Or you didn't think that? Because the women want safety, like they don't want to end up at your house second date and they don't even know you yet.
well, I was, you know, I offered her to pick her up or that. It was, I think, a Saturday, going hiking and to the vineyard, my one of my popular dates. So she came. So it's during daylight. So I don't think it was,
Okay.
you know, that's less risky. That's why I like a lunch over a dinner
Yeah.
at the date too. I think a lot of dangers perceived at night, and I think I had done a good enough job that she wasn't scared or whatever. I mean, I kind of agree with you on a first date. I don't know. I never had any negativity on that, except women when they were lukewarm.
Mhm.
Like if she says, "Well, is it okay if we meet there?" I mean, and there may be cases where you want to meet um, at a venue. Maybe you live far apart,
Yeah.
but it's a bad sign. Is all I'm saying. Is she doesn't trust you, or more likely she's lukewarm and she just wants to be able to leave, and you know, she just wants a free meal. I'm not saying that they're all in it for a free meal. I'm not saying that at all. But it's more like I got nothing else going on. Maybe you're not that bad, but you don't
Now,
want somebody who's not that bad. You want somebody who's really into you. You
yeah.
know.
So when you were dating, and how many messages did you go back and forth online
Oh,
dating before you got her number and called her or asked her out? Like what was, is it 1 week? Is it like 2 weeks? Like when did you pull the trigger to want to meet her?
I like to be quicker than that.
Okay.
I the rule of three. Uh, I like to I go through her profile. I never say hi or something. I ask her a question based on her profile or something I think she likes, you know. And that would usually get the conversation going. With my wife, that she had been my wife's Ukrainian. She'd been, but she'd been to the pyramids. So I asked a question about her pyramids, and I said, you know, I'd always like to go to this country, Georgia, because I saw Anthony Bourdain. He visited there. It sounded neat, you know, and she'd been to Georgia, and so. And after the third date, I said, so this goes back and forth, and then that night I asked her out for the next week,
Okay.
on March. So that was kind of typical. But I think that the important thing is to have that first message is to have it stand out. Something that's personal, something in her profile that, and some women don't give you a lot to work with, and that's kind of frustrating. That's why, like, if a woman doesn't even do the bio, I mean, you run into this, it's kind of frustrating. It's I don't know what to work with. I mean, it's like I remember one time I just gave up. I said, "This isn't worth the effort. I
Yeah.
have nothing to work with."
Right. Right. No, I agree. I agree. Man, James, I so appreciate your insight on this, and I probably could talk to you for another hour, but I do want to be respectful of your time. I understand you have a book. I will put that in the show notes, and you have a blog. So if there are men out there that want to get your information, they could go to your blog and your website to read more and learn more from you.
Yes, yes, it's www dot datingprofilesecrets.com. And like I said, I have a blog, and you can call me up. I have free 15, 20 minutes, and I'll give you some tips, if you will, uh, that can make you have a better profile.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Well, I would put all your information in the show notes. Thank you so much for your time today and your stories. And it was very informative. I really appreciate a guest that can provide value to the listeners out there. And men out there, if you're looking for some help, please contact James. And if you're looking to hire a matchmaker, I'd be happy to speak with you and see if I can help. Maybe I can, maybe I can't, but I work with men who want to date Asian women all across the US. And sometimes the men are open to Ukrainian women and Latina women as well. So I would love to hear from you. And ladies, please register with me, fill out a profile so I know how to find you. Well, thank you so much, James, for your time. And thank you, you guys, for listening to the Asian Dating Podcast. Have a great day. Bye, everybody.